Okay, so I have a bit of crow to eat. In a recent video where I discussed which healing perks might soon become meta, I mocked the idea that anyone would ever use No One Left Behind for any reason whatsoever. But because life is a funny thing, I was almost immediately shown the error of my ways when Tataru made a video dedicated to showing just how good the perk could be. And because I'm never too proud to admit when I'm wrong, I almost immediately booted up Dead by Daylight and started using the No One Left Behind and Hope combo that Tat suggested in the video. You may ask, what did I find? Well, two things. Firstly, I found that my initial prognosis was at least partially correct. Being an in-game perk, No One Left Behind clearly isn't going to surpass Will Make It, Botany Knowledge, Autodidact, or Desperate Measures for the title of being the best healing perk. Now that Circle of Healing is being boosted back to the meta, the whole debate was kind of pointless anyway. Despite this, there was a second takeaway, that being that I walked away with a newfound respect for No One Left Behind, and for the time being, I absolutely believe I will be running it more games than not. Now, it's possible that you're not entirely in the know about just what No One Left Behind does, so let's take a moment and talk about the specifics of the perk. No One Left Behind is a non-teachable survivor perk, meaning that everyone has access to it immediately and you don't have to prestige survivors to unlock it for everyone else. This perk is an in-game focus perk that buffs several aspects of the survivor's experience so that they stand a better chance of beating the killer in the final moments of the game. Specifically, once the final generator is completed and the exit gates are powered, No One Left Behind provides the player with a 100% blood point boost for healing and unhooking teammates, a 50% boost to healing and unhooking speed, a 7% movement speed buff for recently unhooked teammates, and the ability to see all teammates' auras until the end of the trial. Now, I know that's a fairly lengthy perk description, so I'd like to go piece by piece and highlight why each buff matters and why they help. And they do all matter, save for possibly the blood point buff. I mean, it's nice getting additional BP, but the game isn't nearly as grindy as it used to be, so at this point, I'm not sure the increase in earnings is really going to convince anyone to use this perk that wasn't already using it. Still, it is a non-teachable perk, so newer players who are looking to level up more quickly would get even further benefit out of this perk than most, which is nice. As for everyone else, the real benefits begin with the aura reading. I cannot tell you how nice it is to see where each teammate is and what they're doing. Even in an era where we can see icons to show that a teammate, maybe they're being chased or they're opening an exit gate, this perk allows you to see where the chase is taking place and which gate is being opened. Even when playing with friends on comms, this ability takes our coordination to the next level and pays huge dividends. I would be tempted to run No One Left Behind for the aura reading ability alone. It's that helpful. But of course, the perk isn't just an aura reading perk. It also buffs your healing and unhooking speeds. The healing buff feels extremely useful, extremely good, as you and a buddy can top off their health really quickly before returning to action to try and bail out a teammate in chase. Regarding the unhooking speed, this one can be pretty important too. So much of what killers do is instinctual. After playing the game long enough, they know things like where the survivors likely spawned, if there's enough distance between the survivor and a vault that they can still get a hit, and if the survivors have time to make a save. With No One Left Behind, you can mess with a killer's internal clock by making the save quicker than they're used to. This perk can be the difference between a successful save and a healthy grab, and y'all know how I feel about healthy grabs. And even with all of that, we're still not finished. After unhooking your teammate, they're given an additional 7% boost of movement speed for 10 seconds. This speed boost could hypothetically help them get to a pallet or a jungle gym, but more realistically, it's going to help them get to the exit gate if it's even somewhat close by. Now, I don't know if this movement speed buff is in addition to the speed boost that survivors already get with built-in borrowed time, but I would assume that it is. If not, it just means that they get to keep that buff for longer, kind of like what regular borrowed time does now. Either way, the buff won't keep the killer from tunneling your unhooked teammate, but it will make their job harder. So, in short, No One Left Behind is a perk that provides the player with a useful buff to action speed, a buff to teammate movement speed, an increase in the amount of earned blood points, and a powerful aura reading ability that lets you choose your movements far more carefully. And while these benefits are undeniably strong, the icing on the cake is that they're not that hard to activate. This isn't a perk like Medal of Man, where you have to go out of your way and play in a specific manner to gain value from it. No One Left Behind will become a factor so long as your team works on the main objective. That's it. That's all you've got to do. Work on generators and you will be rewarded in the home stretch. Sure, that does mean there will be games where you never reach the point of seeing No One Left Behind come into play, but that's not all that unique to this perk. Most perks in DBD have the potential of being entirely useless, save for maybe a few aura reading and exhaustion perks, and even then, there are exceptions to those too. That said, good to decent players will get some amount of value from No One Left Behind in more games than not, so I don't feel like it's that much of a downside. To be blunt, if you don't even make it to the end game in the first place, the odds are that one additional perk wouldn't have done much for you either. So, let's say you're sold on No One Left Behind and you want to run it in your builds. What should you pair it with? Well, for my money, I absolutely advise that you follow Tat's lead and pair it with Hope, which is another non-teachable perk, making it very accessible to everyone. This perk gives the user a permanent 7% buff to movement speed once the final gen is completed, meaning it will always activate at the exact same time as No One Left Behind, making you just this end-game god. I don't know if 7% sounds like a large buff or not, but keep in mind that the fastest killers move 15% faster than survivors, so this is a pretty substantial speed increase. Ironically, it's the slower killers like Nurse, Huntress, and Deathslinger who are less affected by Hope, seeing as though they're specifically designed to close gaps and catch speedy targets, so they're actually least affected by this. But that's not to say they're not affected at all, obviously. If you don't want to run Hope, the Meg Thomas teachable perk Adrenaline is also an excellent choice. This perk heals you a full health state and gives you 150% movement speed for 5 seconds. This pairs well with No One Left Behind because the perk is most useful, meaning No One Left Behind, when you're not the one being chased at the end, and Adrenaline will help to discourage further chasing from the killer. The movement speed boost might also help you get to the exit gate that you see your buddy opening, so that's nice as well. So you've got to build with No One Left Behind and either Hope or Adrenaline. What's next? Well, even if you have Adrenaline, I would definitely recommend another more consistent exhaustion perk that will carry you through the beginning and middle parts of the trial. For my money, I'd say go with Lithe, Sprint Burst, or Dead Hard, but there's absolutely no reason you couldn't run Balanced Landing or Overcome. Or if you really want to put some hair on your chest, give a try to Smash Hit. Why not? Either way, this build is all about getting to the end game, and exhaustion perks are the best way to do that. Your final perk is where the fun really begins. This one can essentially be pretty much anything and is going to come down to personal preference. Maybe you choose Prove Thyself to shred through gens more quickly. Maybe you choose a healing perk to help during the first 2 stages of the trial and stack with No One Left Behind in the end. If you're in a Swift, it's a good idea for at least one player to bring Circle of Healing, so maybe that's you. My personal preference for the final perk slot is Unbreakable. I find slugging to be fairly common practice these days, and this perk helps to mitigate that. But again, you can slap pretty much any perk in this final spot and feel justified in your choice. One popular perk that I see run with No One Left Behind a lot that I would advise against is Kindred, because while Kindred is nice for your teammates, it does defeat the purpose a little bit in that, you already see where your teammates are, so that's not giving you the same benefit, and if you're cutting out a quarter of a perk's functionality, I'm not saying it's garbage or anything like that, but it's just not necessarily something I would recommend in this exact case. But that's pretty much going to do it for me. I do recommend you go watch Tat's video as well, so I'll link that down in the description below. Go show some love there and check that one out. But I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope that you start running this one, because again, what I like to do is I like to try to highlight perks that are going to make your experience more fun, not necessarily more meta. That's why I love things like Fast Track and Autodidact. I'm just trying to kind of help people who maybe are a little burned out on the game see how to have more fun with it. So please do give this one a try. Let me know how it goes for you. But that's going to do it for me. Until the next video, I've been DustFood. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely day, and bye, friends.
I've been dreaming on in my head like I've seen it. A life worth living is a life with meaning. I'll do what I love till my heart stops beating. I'm feeding this demon. Got a taste, can't erase bitterness in my